Who insists I use this? The meeting is now in order. Ready to come in? Appreciate that. First item of business is to, we have no remote participants. Everyone's here. Everyone is here. What about that? Okay. Cool. So next item of business is the disposition of the minutes from our August meeting. Any comments about these?
There's this place.
Comments, suggestions, additions, corrections? If not, may I have a motion to accept the minutes as presented? All in favor? Great, thank you. Next up, I have some announcements. Do we have any announcements? I have an announcement. Everybody should remember that this Friday at 3 p.m. is the Crozet Library 10-year celebration. Everyone is welcome. Like this, I plan to attend, but if anyone else would like to make their way out to Crozet, I think it's 10 years, but it's 10 years, and we'll be at the library this Friday the 29th, I believe. Other announcements. And if not, public comment time. Do you have anybody online, David?
If anybody online would like to make public comment, please use the Zoom raise hand function now. Or once, twice. No virtual public comment at this time.
In-person public comments. I'm going to do all the talking today. All right. For our continuing education today, David's going to talk about the Library of Things update.
Okay, so you joked that you were going to do all the talking today, but I have a feeling I will be doing quite a bit of talking. Okay, so today's continuing ed for the board is about JMRL's Library of Things, and this was spurred on a little bit by Kayla Payne's continuing ed last month, which was about technological offerings that JMRL has, and some follow-up questions I got from Martha about, like, what do we check out? What are the things that are not books that get checked out? Where can I get my hands on that the Cricut machine? I put together a slight presentation, a little show and tell of some of the things that are part of the Library of Things in JMRL. So these are just non-book materials that get checked out to people. I'm only talking today about the things that people can circulate, they can take home. So we're not actually talking about the makerspace materials where you can go in and use the printer, the 3D printer, or the Cricut. We'll have a later continuing ed on that. But this is a good question. I thought it's been a while. I'm not the expert on these. It's various different departments, so I might have to answer some questions after the fact, but I will show you what I know. Okay, we'll start with a little history lesson. So the first example I'm aware of JMRL's Library of Things, not called that at the time, was the fact that the library used to circulate paintings, artwork. This was still in the technical services closet at the central library. There's the front of the painting. On the back, it's a little hard to make out, but you can see the pocket where the little card would go that you would write the return date on it and get filed. The date due stamp for when it would get stamped to say it's due. So I guess the theory was you would have this on your wall for a dinner party or whatnot, and then bring it back in 3 weeks or whatever long it was, and replace it with something else. Also, in the 70s and 80s, I know that the library circulated classical music LPs for a while. So now we would consider music to be part of the core offering that JMRL gives to the public. We have CDs, we have some streaming options, we have DVDs with music on them, excuse me. Bike engraver kits. When I first started at JMRL in 2002, there was a weird looking device behind the circulation desk at Gordon Avenue that I didn't know what it was, and it was an engraver. It was one of the local police departments wanted them to check out so that people could put their information, their name or contact number on a bike, so if it got stolen, they would be able to claim it. I couldn't find any of those to bring today. I think we finally took those out of circulation. So you can see that public libraries, or at least here, have always been asked to circulate non-book material. It's not a new thing, right? It's just it's evolved over time. So those non-traditional offerings grew organically into the kits that I'm going to show you today, and eventually into this library of things. So do a little show and tell, and then I'll just leave these up here after the meeting today. You all can help yourselves to see what we've got available.
What happened to all those paintings?
The last one that I'm aware of is the one that's at the Technical Services Division at the Central Library. The rest of them, I have no idea. Presumably, I mean, for the rest of our discarded materials, we give them to the Friends of the Library and they sell them. Maybe that's what happened with them, but I don't know. It's a grand mystery. I don't think they were stolen. Okay, one of the earliest
That was a win.
one of the earliest sets of kits, and we have, I think, about almost 20 of these at the Bookmobile. These are memory kits, and these are purchased from a company that makes these specifically to take out and use in memory care units. So each one is themed. This one is Remembering Country Fairs. And inside of it, you have usually either a DVD or some music or something that it's an activity for folks to use to remind them of days past, basically. So booklet, CD, and a guide about remembering country fairs. And inside there are some songbooks. There's some program manuals if a nursing home wanted to check it out and say, hey, let's do a program on what were country fairs like back in the day. And there are lots of different topics just about the way things were, basically. And they're supposed to, the idea there is that they help people make new neural pathways and kind of jog their memory a little bit. So we have a lot of these that are available at the Bookmobile for when they go along to residences that have memory care units. These are not highly circulated. They're not highly sought after. They haven't updated with new content in a while from this company, so we haven't been able to make our own. The last time we updated them basically is when the VHS tapes had to be converted to DVDs. Nobody had a VHS player. But this was one of the earlier kind of kits of things that we would check out intended for the public to use. Next after that, this kilowatt reader kit. This is a good example of when an organization came to JMRL and said, hey, we've got a great idea. We've got some money, we've got these things, you've got a system to deliver materials. Why don't we work together for the benefits of our community? This is something that you can plug in at your house and read your wattage usage. Don't ask me how it works. But there are instructions here, so you can kind of see what your usage is at home and track it over time and see whether or not there's a place where you have a problem or whether you're overusing or anything like that. So this was in maybe 2010, something like that, or 15 years ago, something like that this group came to JMRL and said, hey, this is a great idea. We said, okay, sure, why not? So there's at least one of these at each branch, and these actually circulate. They go out, so people check them out. The next group that came to JMRL to ask to partner was the State Library. And actually, this wasn't an initiative directly with us. It was the State Library and the state parks. They circulate these packs, which are state library packs, and inside them is a pass, which enables free access for a family to go to state park. You can check this out, hang it up in your car, and you get free access to the state park. Inside the backpack are all sorts of, focused mainly towards children. This was a youth initiative. Songbirds of Virginia, field and flora and fauna, trees and wildflowers, kind of information here, along with a bug catching kit, which has to be thoroughly inspected upon return to the lab. Pop-up porta-bug. I'm not going to open it. I don't know. So again, third party coming to the library. In this case, it was the state library, and they sent these to every every public library in Virginia. So every library you go to in Virginia should have some form of this if you're still participating.
So those passes have to be updated annually. Who bears the cost of updating them annually?
The state library. So these might be exempt from that. I'm not positive if they do. Not sure how old this one was. This is Grose's, but yeah, this expires in 12/25, so we'll need a new one at the end of the year. Okay, the next group that reached out to us was the Discovery Museum in downtown Charlottesville. They were interested in a circulating pass program for families to be able to come and use the museum there. So we started circulating these a few years ago. It's a free pass that allows up to 4 people into the museum at any given time. So we check them out to families. These only go out for 1 week, slightly different. Almost everything here is a 3-week checkout. We've since added it's outside of our service area, but it's the Frontier Culture Museum. Also has passes that you can check out from JMRL to go to the museum there. So these were kind of not a planned thing saying, okay, we're going to go build this, collection. It was people coming to us and, okay, well, that sounds reasonable. That sounds reasonable. That sounds reasonable.
How many museum kids have? Is it just
I think we have one for each branch at
Okay.
least. So at least 9 of them, possibly more, but I can look that up.
That's okay. I was just.
The next was the toy library, very popular. This started at the Gordon Avenue branch, and it was a partnership with the Madison House at the University of Virginia, which is their service house for students. They came to JMRL. They had some money. They wanted to get these kits, early learning kits, to check out to families. They also agreed that they would take them all in and clean them between each use. So at Gordon Avenue, we had 15 or 20 of these, incredibly popular. They all checked out. The students would come over, pick them up, and hand wipe them down after each one. It was so popular that we added these to every location. So this one is Scottsville's actually, and they are available to check out, circulate region-wide, as all these things are. During COVID, the Madison House stopped taking them back in to clean, and that's become staff responsibility. So now library staff are taking them in and wiping them. This particular one, New Sprant's Camp Out Play Set. So, and there are very many different types of these. I'll show you in a second here how to find out where they are and what they are.
Still popular.
Yes, still incredibly popular. So up until that point, and that was maybe also within the last 10 years or so, these were organizations that reached out to JMRL that had an idea that they thought would benefit the community, that would work well with the library's mission. The library agreed. We started adding these. The rest of these are more JMRL initiatives. They're more organized towards, our collection development, thinking, our programming, things like that. So starting with this hotspot checkout kit. So this is a wireless hotspot that you bring home. It works on a cellular network. This particular one, I believe, is the Verizon Jetpack. This comes from Nelson County Library. These are always checked out and always on hold. The Verizon ones were popular. Verizon serves the largest kind of footprint in the JMRL service area, but they're not perfect. If you're in an area that doesn't have cell service, then this won't work. If you have cell service but no broadband, you can get connectivity. So we partnered with a commercial entity to buy these and get them filtered for educational uses, basically. So early on, they allowed no video access. I believe that's opened up now. It's video, so but you couldn't get on various commercial sites and whatnot. They were kind of locked out a little bit. Since then, we've had to add other T-Mobile devices as well for folks that don't have Verizon access but could get T-Mobile. Those are the two main providers in the area. So some people will request those. So this is a JMRL initiative that I think Kayla mentioned last month.
And those you can check out for 3 weeks or
3 weeks.
And the monthly cost for those is what?
Either operational or equipment. I have to check. It should be operational, but it's potentially.
And how many per branch, or what's the distribution of those?
We'd have to look that up for you, but I'm happy to look that up and get back to you.
Is it through branch, or is it just we have a whole pile of them and then
It's through branch, but effectively it doesn't matter. They're so popular and they have such a demand for them that they're always moving. So if Nelson's came home to Nelson, it's likely not staying. It gets scanned in and says somebody wants me to agree, and it's on the way out. Okay, then we get into a reference department has spearheaded with the help and the support of the Friends of the Library in the last 5 years, maker kits and health kits. The health kits we had a continuing ed about a few years ago. They got a grant specifically for that. And there are like 7 or 8 of those, and they have information that are all health related. Like there's one cardio kit that has a blood pressure monitor in it, things like that. There's another one that's like yoga bands and for fitness and stretching and things like that. So we got those, and then these maker kits, which are kind of in various different subjects for all people, friends, families to learn about. So I brought an assortment of these. Some of the older ones here are, this is a hand therapy kit. So this is a health kit. And inside there's information about how to strengthen the muscles in your hand and some equipment. Squeezy balls and a little exercise device or hand roller or both, I think, actually. the hand model for this. Information on how to use what's included here and best practices, basically, for sharing this information. The rest of these are learning kits and maker kits. So this one is a light therapy kit. It includes one of the things that the president carries with nuclear codes. About the theory that lack of daylight or sunlight can lead to seasonal effectiveness disorder. So some information about the thinking about that, and then a light that is supposed to simulate that for individuals that want to try it, including some information there about where this came from and how to find more information. So that's why this is in the big kit. One of the most popular kits started last year, 2 years ago maybe, Flavors of the World maker kits. So these are from all around the world, and they come with cookbooks and spices from different regions of the world. This one is India. And this has to be replenished on a rolling basis. So inside, there's everything you would need to make a meal except for like raw ingredients, basically. There are measuring cups, utensils, all sorts of things for cooking, and then spices. Yes, and this is what has to be replenished every time it comes back in or every few times. So this needs to be looked at by staff every time it gets returned to make sure it's not missing one of these spices, basically. This is supported by the Friends of the World. They take this stuff. They're tremendously popular. Okay, just a few more.
Are there recipes in there as well?
Yes, I believe so. I have actually never checked one out. Yes. Pork vindaloo, rasgula, no fail recipe, it says.
Uh-huh.
I'd like to put that in the text. Alvada, yes, so there are recipes for each one. You can smell it, right? Okay, last two before I move on here. Snap circuits kit, and then a makey kit. Tim might have to help me with these here. Electronic snap circuit. So this comes with projects and materials here where you learn how circuitry works. So you can put together projects that are in this book based on the materials that are in the kit. So some batteries, some buzzers, little connecting circuits. Please don't ask me any follow-up questions.
I think that's great particularly for homeschoolers.
Yeah, it's like a STEM kit, basically. Very popular amongst homeschoolers and people. Makey are similar little devices. This is called Makey Projects for Evil Geniuses. And it's a similar little circuitry kit, basically, with some information about how to put it together. So it's a STEM kit. So these are some examples of what we have. These are the ones that I could get my hands on after Martha asked, like, oh, hey, I'd like to see some of these not book things checked out. Almost everything in our library of things has holds on it. So I had to wait my turn for these, and I'll turn them around as soon as the meeting is over today, because people are waiting. So let me show you a few more things here, and then I'll take any questions you have. Okay, so how do you find these things? What's the discoverability of them? Because most of them are not available on the shelf because they're so popular. They're circulating out there all the time. The best spot for it is jmrl.org/library of things, where Sarah has organized all the parts, all the different types of kits that JMRL has into the various categories that I just went through. So from there, you can go quickly to check availability, which goes directly to our catalog. Each one has a barcode and a catalog record. You can place a hold on anything you've seen there. Or you can find out more information about the kits. When you say about the kits, there's a slight PowerPoint. So the maker kits, here's how to request it. And then here's a list of all the ones we have. We have a knitting kit, coloring kit, embroidery kit, origami, that's snap circuits, the makey, squishy circuits, lap loom, bird watching, writer's block, calligraphy, flavors of the world, and Ukraine, Afghanistan, India. Ozobots, which are also a little circuitry-based STEM device. Learning English as a second language, a citizenship kit on preparing for naturalization, a ukulele kit where you can check out a ukulele. I'll have more to say about that in a minute.
That yours?
No. Chess kit, how to play chess for kids. Live broadcasting. This one has been very popular. It's like how to podcast at home. Basically, you can check it out right now. And then we've also got something similar for the health library fit kits, the cardio kit that I mentioned, the foam rollers, hand therapy, which I showed you, a yoga kit, a Pilates kit for breast cancer patients and survivors, that light therapy lamp, resistance bands. That's it in that category. Same for the toy library, where we've got a list of all the different types of, so if a family wanted to request one and the catalog didn't give them enough information, they could scroll through here and see what they want. So if you want the Sprout Soup or the learning resources, they're all basically tactile toys for smaller children. Okay.
Has it been pretty good in terms of all the pieces being returned, or?
Yeah, it's not bad. We lose some. There's some attrition there, and some kits can go on missing a piece. Some they need to be replaced. Some we need to wait. The piece needs to replace. Some we need to take down and replace it with something else entirely.
Do we charge the individuals for that?
We charge them for the kit. I can't remember what the charges are for I think the individual pieces we don't necessarily. If they lose something because it's too hard to track down the cost on that, pieces or whatnot, we wouldn't charge somebody for this place. So that's a good question. I'll have to go back to staff to ask them. But my thinking is I know there's at least one kit that's billed to somebody because they never returned the kit that we would charge them for. An individual piece in there, we would probably try to replace it or track it down. Okay. So those are the Maker Kit info, Health Kit info, and Toy Library. Also, Ask Your Librarians are happy to talk about this. We're working on some catalog improvements too with the new catalog getting more use and popularity. It offers some more options for discoverability. So I know Tech Services staff is talking about getting images for each of them in the catalog, which currently they kind of have a placeholder image. It says like Kit 1, Kit 2, and splitting them out for even more discoverability. So a lot of them started out on one kind of title, kits, something like that, because like I said, we had a few things added here and there, and over time that grew, and it probably needs to be split out a little bit for a little bit more easy to use. So I know Tech Services is working on that. So what does the future hold? Let's talk about what's most popular now. So the Discovery Museum passes, we have 17 of them to answer, I think, Kathy's question. They went out 405 times last year, which is about 23, almost 24 times per item, which is a really good number for checking things out. Keep in mind, though, the asterisk is because those only go out for a week. So there was more opportunity for them to check out because there was a smaller period for them. The toy library, 52 items, went out 809 times, 15.56 circ per item. So that's pretty good, too. Those numbers, though, are probably a little inflated because some of them need to, the ones at the central library get checked out to staff in order to clean too. So it adds a few checkouts there that I have to go through and parse out. Other branches tend to get them in, clean them when they're in, send them back out. They don't get the same volume of them, but they have to kind of store them until they can clean them all. The Frontier Culture Museum passes, 16 passes, 149 times last year, 9.31 per item. Same thing, 1 month. That is outside our service area. It's in Stanton. So it only really, somebody has to have a time to be going there. Hotspots, 34 of them, 310 times last year, 9.12.
I would think that number would be much greater.
People keep them. The checkout number, they're not returning them right away. They're keeping them the length of their checkout.
Oh, right, 3 weeks.
And interesting, I mean, when you mentioned hotspots, which I knew about, but I forgot last month, I put a T-Mobile on hold because I'd like to see what T-Mobile signal strength is at my house.
Sure.
And I was at a month ago, I was 115, now I'm down to 12. So people do keep them for the whole 3 days.
Can you renew them?
You could if nobody was on hold for them, but somebody's always.
Go back on hold.
And the barrier here for the library is the cost of them. It's not the physical cost of the item itself. Those are about $100 for one of those hotspots. So it's a lot, but we get a lot of use out of it. It's the data plan. It's the monthly cost to provide the data. that's the big expense there.
Since we're talking about that, how do we generally decide the budget constrained trade-off? Obviously, if we doubled it, we'd probably, from what you're saying, double the budget for that. That would probably be fully utilized or highly utilized. How do we make that trade-off? Well, this is how many dollars we put into this versus, that
Right.
The prospectively doubling that, but we've taken that amount and allocated it to other things.
When we're talking about the normal circulating collection of materials, which is generally books, ebooks, audiobooks, the electronic devices, those all come from kind of one pool of money. So we're looking at, what has the highest demand, what's got the highest, what we think is going to have the highest turnover rate over time too, like what's still going to be popular in 2 years.
Which is what Meredith kind of spoke to.
So these have come out of our technology budget in the last few years. The initial group of them came from the Friends of the Library Endowment who funded them. I think we bought some more, some of the T-Mobile ones with some funding that we got from the state a few years ago. So they haven't been part of the same materials process for how do we decide how many we need. Yeah. They're in competition with every other technology need that Kayla talked about last month. So there's not an exact science to that for these particular items. There's much more of a science to it for most of what we check out.
I suppose I'm just brainstorming, there would be an opportunity to make a presentation to the Friends and say, hey, here's our popular item, here's what we've within our operating budget allocated. Yeah. But there's an opportunity for you, the Friends, based on your priorities for your fund, to fund this at a greater level.
I think they would be happy to do that. They tend to not fund ongoing operational costs, which is the data portion of it. The Friends tend to buy things, here's some money for this thing, and then we're done with that thing.
Well, you fund programming, which I would think of in a similar vein. There's programs every week.
I'm sure they would be very supportive.
Yeah, it's just, okay. I'm just curious how, there's a demand that's not being met here, it seems, but I know that it's in competition with other, as you pointed out.
All right.
You gave me the high level answer I'm looking for.
And maybe,
how do we make those?
Maybe some of these, well, let me finish these two and then maybe I'll address that and some of my thoughts about what's upcoming. So we have Chromebooks also available for checkout that are in-house only currently. So you can go to any of our branches and check out a Chromebook, which is a laptop that runs the Chrome OS Google's. So it doesn't have the Office suite, things like that. It's not a Mac system. And those get fairly high use, but they don't leave the building. They only stay in the building. And then I discussed the makerspace plans, which we'll have a future CE on, but we've got teen makerspace being built here at Northside, the one at Mont Ave, the digital media lab being built there, and then Nelson's also using some funding from their fundraising to build a makerspace / business center. They've got a lot of very interesting material you can come into the library to use. And we'll have a separate CE on that later.
And that's the 3D.
That's 3D printing. We've been offering 3D printing here for 10 years at this branch as a service. We've added at the main library, there's a laser cutter, a low forge laser cutter. We'll have a whole continuing add-on. Yesterday they had an open house. It's very successful. About 50 people came to see what the Central Library has on. One other just note for you, the single favorite maker kit was the Flavors of the World Afghanistan, which went out 27 times last year. There's a lot of work and upkeep of those, so special thanks to the reference department and the children's department for collaborating on these things. So here's some things that we get asked for that other libraries do offer. Cake pans is a popular one. There are libraries that check out different garden tools. That gets requested every once in a while. Like the library would have a collection of garden tools that people could check out. Musical instruments. So I know our neighbors in Stanton have musical instruments for checking out. We have kind of shied away from it, except for that ukulele. It just comes with its own headaches. It's always a capacity issue. So for example, that ukulele kit I noticed had a hole to pick up at the locker at Crozet. It's not going to work. It's not going to fit in there. We need to have the space for it to store it when it's not out. It needs to be able to survive our delivery route, which is, the size of the state of Delaware every day. So we just need to consider the physical materials themselves too. It's always a capacity issue. Cataloging, organizing, delivering, storage space. Where do they live? Is there room to store them at the branch waiting for the hold? Also, we're interested in non-duplication of efforts. So for the tools, for example, Charlottesville has a tool library, and the Bridge Performing Arts Center offers tools and space to use tools in Charlottesville. So we're not trying to duplicate something that some other organization is working on. We're also asked to simply distribute things for other organizations on a pretty regular basis because they see a trusted space in the community that already has a system for giving things away to people. The perfect example of that are the COVID tests that we gave away in the fall, winter of 22-23. Great cause, great partners, but it quickly overwhelmed library services. It became the only thing that library staff could do during that few-week period where it was happening. So we always want to be aware of the mission of the library and kind of be on the lookout for mission creep too. Some things are great for the community and seem like a good idea, but might not necessarily be the library's intent, which is kind of why we had these piecemeal kits for a while. We didn't have a strategy. And then in the last few years, we've thought, well, if we're going to do this, we're already offering some, then we need to hold it to some of the same standards that we do, who we're going to partner with, how are we going to make these available. So we look back at our mission and values and policies, make sure that they match. For example, the ukulele, it doesn't exactly fit in the lockers at Crozet, so we have to think about that. But it's also a very neat book, kit. It's not just the ukulele. It also has information about books, how to use it, sheets on how to access artist works, which is a database that JMRL offers through the state, which has videos on how to learn instruments and things like that. So it's a way to promote library resources and to connect people to information, some of which is traditional library resources, if we consider databases traditional library resources, and some of it is the actual physical things. Okay, that's the end of my spiel. Like I said, I'm not the expert on these, so if you have in-depth questions, I'll take them back to staff who can answer them and circulate about it. But what kinds of questions do you all have about today's show and tell?
It's great stuff. I just, people, I don't get the thing anymore about, well, libraries are just book. People have finally figured that one. They don't come to me anymore and say, why do we still have libraries? Nobody reads books. But every time I talk to somebody about the library and I mention, a free service or something that we have that we give away that people have no idea about, it really is one of those, moments where the light bulb goes off. I think it really does credit to the library every time. It's wonderful.
I have a question about the hotspots.
Yeah.
So, I think I know the answer, which is, I would think they'd be most popular in the rural libraries, Nelson, Green, where their services. Do you have more there, or is it just that they circulate? So
They circulate regionally, so each branch has an allotment of them, but you're never going to walk into, right now, you're not going to walk into a branch and see them on the shelf waiting to browse and pick one up. So they're available for the entire patronage at any given time. I don't have the exact numbers on that, so I'll speak anecdotally.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times in Nelson, in Louisa, and especially before the last few years when really they've done a great job in pulling broadband to places that didn't have it before. The problem was people would get them because they couldn't get broadband and then get home and not have line of sight. They wouldn't be able to get cell coverage either. So that wouldn't work.
So it didn't work.
It didn't work, period.
Yeah.
Even, we tried a different provider, maybe that would work better. But
Right.
some of the people who need it the most, it's not gonna fix their issue. Only broadband is gonna fix their issue. So those people we know because they're coming to the library to use the resources in the library. So I don't have a breakdown on that, but that's a good question. I can ask Kayla to look. Peter, you had a question?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because the library effectively is a platform for sharing anything that people might buy, right? And so these things are so interesting because they kind of provoke people to think beyond books and magazines and digital information and so forth. I'm kind of curious in terms of of the things that you showed us. There's most of them, I would say, kind of fit in the category of supporting learning. There's some that are just more utility based, like like the thing to check your kilowatts, right? You could argue anything could help learning, but it's more of a utility function. So I was just curious if that's one of the key criteria for defining what you want in this sort of collection. Is it helping with independent learning?
Yeah, I think you can see kind of the break halfway through the table here were the things that have been part of when JMRL decided we're gonna call this the library of things. We're gonna think about what we buy moving forward rather than just kind of like who wants to come to us with an idea. They've been more kind of promoting learning, promoting lifelong learning in various different areas. So like you said, I think it could make an argument for the kilowatt here, but this was very much, the Kilowatt Reader was very much an outside organization saying, hey, we've got funding, wouldn't this be cool? And at the time, it seemed like, okay, well, it's kind of a no-brainer. You know, we can do this for you, but there has to be a point at which we can't do that for everybody all the time. The library can't, so it needs to kind of dovetail closer with our mission. And I think that that's a pretty good way to describe it.
Yeah, because I mean, I've heard of like the school libraries before, and I've always thought that was a cool idea, but you know, it gets a little bit more into the question of, you know, right, if that's, you know, at some point the library could be taking away from like the profitability of the hardware store because everyone's just going to the library for all their tools, right? So it's just interesting to think about that. The learning thing seems very defensible as like this is really part of our mission.
Yeah, and I think we've been asked about tool libraries in the past, and that's been part of the reasoning.
I think liability too.
The
now use-
Charlottesville Tool Library, when you sign up, have to sign a waiver.
A waiver.
Presumably, if we were to do it, we would just, when people use the laser cutter, they're gonna have to sign it. They're gonna have to sign it for them.
And what you're also talking about is just how much energy it takes for the staff. So if every time someone checks out a tool, they have to come out to charge it and check it, make sure it's still working. It's a lot of time and energy for staff that have other things.
We just want to defensively, was a good word, tie these things to our mission and values. Because I am concerned about, during COVID, I got very concerned about mission creep when the library was asked to partner on a lot of very important and worthwhile things in our community. And some we could say yes to because they did kind of work with our mission. Some were just, that's just a little bit outside what,
I
what the
remember
library's
the
here.
COVID test distribution for staff. That was all.
It overwhelmed every other service. You wouldn't have been able to get a book. Check out.
Well, and also notaries, right? Don't people, a lot of people come in.
That's a whole other
Get it.
CE that Krista can start thinking about. She's our head of notaries. But yes, that does take a lot of time and energy.
Yeah.
And you could,
So I love the landing page, the library things, because it's systematically lays everything out in one place, you know, topically that you can browse and see one by one. As you were browsing, as often happens, I learned some new stuff that I didn't know. So and I know that in the past, I've seen a couple of these things. The health kits is one I remember as part of what I would call ad hoc messaging, which is it showed up on the carousel on a homepage or it showed up in a newsletter. And I think those are important just as little prompts here and there, but they're not systematic. How do people get to or find their way to the landing page where the whole library things?
yeah, it's under the one of the headers on the main menu. I think it's under the find. It's called library of things. So, but to your point, you know,
Yeah.
somebody might not know what that is. You know,
Well,
this is explore the collection.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here are the kind of things that we decided were important enough that you could break out to say, like, this is not, so somebody's not just looking for the latest Stephen King book, they're looking for something else. They're all kind of categorized here.
I think that's great. It's exploring and you've got it as a topic of its own. And then the trick is to pick the right level of granularity of those topics to where you
Yeah,
get.
Sarah's done an excellent job with this. I think it's it's really showcasing what the new website can do for these types of things. So
Right, thanks.
sure.
Thank you for
I don't think
wonderful
we invented
CE.
it. You're welcome. Thank you for suggesting it. I think we in the library world, borrowing, not stealing. We borrowed that.
Next item on the agenda is a report from the Central Library Renovation Working Group.
I will take that on. So in the last couple of weeks, we haven't had another full meeting since the last time we gathered, but we have certain individuals within the committee have talked, and we have really focused on meeting specifically with city council members. Of course. So David and I met with Brian Pinkston and at the library, which was great, and really gave our pitch and showed him around the library, and he was very enthusiastic, actually. And then next week we meet with Juan Diego Wade. And we haven't set up other appointments, but that's what we're working on, all of them. We're going to go to all of them that will meet with us. And then I believe in the county, you met with.
Jane Cool and I are meeting with Diantha McKeel next week.
Oh, okay. So, and I don't, are there other meetings?
She's working on organizing at least one other meeting with the county board, with the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors.
Okay.
With a
And
supervisor.
then we want to have at least one or two supervisors meet, have lunch with one or two city council members, and hopefully staff, just so we're all on the same page of what we want to do with our CIP application, which is going to be finalized soon. And then we'll have another working session with the full board in mid-October and go forward based on what we're hearing from these elected officials. That's all I have to report.
Fran? And keep the momentum going. All right, new business. My turn. You'll have to stand. I'm sorry. I'm going to, you'll have to. Resolution, whereas Tim Carrier began his career at JMRL in 1994 as the library's young adult services manager, and whereas prior to Tim's hiring, JMRL had never had a regional position in charge of coordinating library services to teens and young adults. And whereas Tim has been the only regional young adult services manager that JMRL has ever had, and whereas Tim has grown JMRL's young adult services to include hundreds of programs region-wide that serve thousands of teens annually, and whereas Tim has cultivated JMRL's young adult collection to include over 36,000 circulating items, and whereas Tim has planned and developed a young adult services program that now includes multiple dedicated staff members across JMRL's service area, and whereas Tim has been a guiding hand in providing public library service in Central Virginia as JMRL's Young Adult Services Manager, member of the JMRL Management Team, founding member and chair of the JMRL Young Adult Services Committee, member of the Youth and Family Programming Committee for the Virginia Festival of the Book, and member of the JMRL Strategic Plan Committee, Customer Service Committee, Home in Your Pocket Committee, Programming and Summer Reading Programming Committees, and Web Committee. And whereas Tim's many contributions to JMRL as a dedicated public service servant for 29 years will be long appreciated by members of this community. Therefore, let it be resolved that on this 25th day of September 2023, the Jefferson Mountain Regional Library Board hereby recognizes and extends their appreciation to Tim Carrier for his dedicated service to JMRL and the people of Charlottesville, Albemarle, Green, Louisa, and Nelson. Birthday.
Thank you very much, everyone. In my years here, I've always really admired and appreciated the leadership that the board has shown, and I know that has gone a very long way into making the library what it is today, and it's certainly a big part of why my time here has been such a positive experience. So I do want to extend my thanks to all of you for everything you do, and thank you so much for this honor. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Let's see. Well, folks, time to start the budget process. It's September, so we're in the budget process. And part of your handouts, one of your handouts is the budget priorities for fiscal year 25. Now showing on the big screen. I'll read these for lack of real preparation. Secure funding to address lack of movement in JMRL's pay scale while work is ongoing on a new compensation plan. And again, that is related to our 5-year plan goal number 3. We had an initiative like this some years back. Of course, time has moved on. We need to address this issue again under recruitment and retention. Secure funding to maintain current levels of library service in the region. That's always one of our budget initiatives. We need to make sure that our funding from our regional jurisdictions is constant, as well as making sure that state library aid continues at its high water mark. I think would be nice. Again, that's related to our 5-year plan goals number 1 through 6. And plan for replacement of a JMRL delivery van. How old is the one we have now?
We actually are supporting 3 at this point. If you remember, the board signed an MOU with the Friends to keep the oldest one. So the youngest, I think, is, I can't remember. It's more about the mileage than the years.
Yeah, I was going to say, as Harrison Ford said, it's the mileage, not the years.
Yes. Within the next few years, it's going to be an urgency.
Okay. Questions about those priorities? So at our October meeting, we're going to be going on with the budget, and our next item is to talk about the budget schedule. But before we move on there, are there any other priorities that folks would like to make sure that we address in next fiscal year?
Where does the priority for Central's renovation come?
Well, this comes up annually when we talk about these. Because that is not a JMRL expense, we generally have not included it on the budget priorities. Like, these are the things that JMRL and the board wants to get into JMRL's budget for next year. But since that is a shared cost between Charlottesville and Albemarle, we would hope it would be on their budget priorities for next year. And Ann is working very hard to make that happen. But putting it here, there's JMRL can't allocate any money towards it. It would have to come from Charlottesville and Albemarle. We will work hard with the Friends on fundraising once we get a commitment on that, but it's not something that JMRL's operational funding will go towards.
Not operational, but I see a great deal of energy in terms of staff and would like to recognize the fact that there's a lot.
I think that would dovetail into the first view here, but I appreciate that sentiment.
So we had a revision to our fiscal year 24 board meetings and budget schedule as requested by Mike and 22 others last month. And that's in our handouts as well, I believe.
You want me to review the changes so this is a proposal for you all based on the discussion you had last month. Removing the library board self-evaluation. This is tiny, I'm sorry, apologies, but from August, so that would have been last month, and relocating that to March. So that would be an annual change. It would, instead of being right at the beginning of the fiscal year, it would be closer to the end of the fiscal year. And then the question was asked about adding an additional rotating board meeting every month. So currently we have, out of the 12 meetings that the board has every year, 8 of them are in this room. The other 4 rotate. Annually, there's always one in Green, Louisa, and Nelson, and the 4th one was rotating between the other branches. So this schedule here reflects a change. We had been doing the rotating one in November, and we had already planned this year that the board would go to Gordon Avenue. This would be adding a new rotating one in May every year. So it would go on a cycle basically where in November we would go to a city branch, and then in May we would go to an Albemarle County branch that hadn't been visited the last year. So it would work out to be 1 year's, like this year it would be Gordon Avenue and Crozet, and the following year it would be the Central branch and the Scottsville branch, and then it would just rotate that way. So the only thing you're able to that seems like it makes sense. Just, does this schedule make sense? Do you want to stick to that every year? And it means adding an additional moving branch there, but not too far. I mean, the fall one is always going to be within Charlottesville limits, and then it's really just Scottsville and Crozet over time.
We need a motion for that.
Sure.
I'd like to make a motion that we.
We revised the schedule of meetings.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you. All right. Potential motion to accept the additional fiscal year 24 state aid funding. Good news from the state, which is not something I get to say all the time. The state has increased our aid to the level of what, 80?
Can I give a little background?
Yeah.
I jotted down some numbers here. So as Tony said, this is great news. So it's thanks to the work of VLA's legislative committee with the support of Phil Abraham from the Vector Corporation. The compromise budget that the state passed 2 weeks ago included a $3.6 million increase to state aid statewide. That's the single largest increase that I have seen in my 20-year career at JMRL. State aid has not been fully funded since 2001. That's the last time that the state fully funded this aid for public libraries, but has seen significant growth over the last 5 years, and it's now at 87.5% funded. So pre-COVID, when I was talking about this, it was closer to 60%. JMRL gets the second largest amount in the state behind Central Rappahannock. We're only about $1,000 less than Central Rappahannock, so something to keep our eye on. This is per the formula that looks at population served, how many jurisdictions share in library service, and square mileage of the entire. So as a reminder, JMRL relies on the state aid for the library's entire materials budget, buying books and materials to circulate. JMRL's new state aid amount, thanks to the support of the state, is $1,026,150. This will mark the first time that state aid to JMRL has broken $1 million. The budget the board passed in June included an amount for $874,446. So that's what we were expecting, and this board approved as part of here's what you could spend in this fiscal year. So we're now going to receive an additional $151,704, which buys a lot of books. We just need a board motion to accept this additional funding and allow the library to spend it this fiscal year.
Is that an immediate
That's this year.
disbursement for this
It comes quarterly.
fiscal year?
Yes, for this fiscal year.
I will make the motion. I move that JMRL accept the Library of Virginia's additional state aid funding of $151,704 and authorize the expenditure of that funding for library materials. Any discussion? Better not be. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
If I could soapbox momentarily, I just want to point out the importance of what David just described to us, which is the structure of how the state, the formula that the state uses to allocate this is strongly in our regional structure plays into that formula very well. So I just want to reinforce to everyone here the importance of our regional structure that includes Charlottesville, Louisa Green, Albemarle, Nelson, and that's what gets you that proportionate amount of that state aid. If we had some numbers that I won't go through, but if there were fewer jurisdictions, it's not a linear drop off. It's because of the formula. It would be a much larger percentage than the amount of population or what have you that you would lose from smaller chunks of those jurisdictions.
This is the algorithm.
This is the actual code.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I brought up just in case anybody wanted to know. So it starts here. It's in the Code of Virginia. 40% of every local dollar expended by the political subdivisions in the system, that gets capped at $250,000, right? So we hit that cap because between Charlottesville, Albemarle, Green, Louisa, and Nelson, they spend $250,000 on library service. And then it's 30 cents for the first 600,000 persons served. We're under that, so it's 30 cents per head in that entire region. Plus 10 cents per capita for each additional jurisdiction. So that's 50 cents because there are 5 jurisdictions here. And then we're not one of the libraries exceeding over 600,000 folks. And then $10 per square mile for, no, I'm sorry, plus an additional $20 per square mile for libraries serving more than one political jurisdiction. So this is what I meant when I says it hasn't been fully funded. So even at this large amount that the state is giving next year, it's not actually, they did those calculations and it's only 87% what that would be. But this is a heck of a lot better than it was a few years ago.
How close are we to the 600,000?
We would need to double the population of the region.
Don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Let's not do that. But there's no guarantee we'll remain at 87.
Correct. Correct. That's an annual appropriation.
That's a 2-year, wasn't that a 2-year?
It's part of the biennium, so this is year 2 of the current budget, I believe. I think so. They'll set another one next year. They really have only cut into state aid at times of drastic reductions to services on the state level. So if there were to be a massive recession, a la 2009, 2010, or the bubble before that bursting, then they would look across the board at making cuts and state aid would be impacted. But you're correct. We can't count on that.
But we can anticipate.
We can anticipate
We'll
it,
remain
yes.
at that.
But likely, I had a discussion with the folks that are spending this money. It's their job, all of a sudden their job got more fun, right? But also harder. They planned out a year's worth of spending and now they need to accommodate for this and making decisions not to buy things that we would need funding for next year as well, because we can't guarantee that from the state until we see some stability here.
Is Rappahannock in excess of 600,000?
That's a great question that I don't know the answer to.
I don't think so. I drove by Central Rappahannock Library yesterday.
Look how competitive everyone is.
And
Congratulations. We'll take our 151,000.
It's the population, so it would be for them Fredericksburg and the surrounding counties.
They're probably more.
I doubt it's 600,000.
As someone who's been caught in traffic
Yeah.
quite a lot in that area, I bet it.
yeah, they can have that.
They can have the book.
They can have that. When was the last time that was reviewed? Being
The
on the
code
being
there?
on the committee was on the policy committee was every 10 years review.
When was the last time the state reviewed this formula? It's been that way. This formula hasn't changed in my experience, so 20 plus years, and I think likely this is from the mid 80s. That would be my guess. It first, actually, it might even be earlier. State aid first began in the 70s, which is one of the reasons that the jurisdictions, the Charlottesville, Albemarle, Green, Louisa, and Nelson formed JMRL, was because this became a set thing. You're going to get this money every year. I'm not sure if it was the same formula then, but my guess is sometime in the 70s, 80s.
But Martha, you'll see under the state aid formula header there, it's state law. So it's however often the legislators
Time to look at it.
decide to do whatever legislators do, right? It's not I doubt that there's a built into the law, a schedule of review.
No, not when you look at some of the state laws.
Were it to be fully funded, it's a well thought out formula, I think. Were it to be fully funded, to Meredith's point, like they should probably look at it for inflation, but since it hasn't been fully funded in 20 years, they're probably not looking to get up the numbers.
It doesn't matter if they promised us $1 if they don't actually.
Your unfunded mandate.
Exactly.
All right, great.
Interesting.
On to old business. We're gonna have a vote, I hope, on policy 5.1.
Hotly debated.
Hotly debated. Really. Much discussion.
Okay, so we had a first reading of this last month, and I'm not going to go through all of it again, but just a brief review that the policy committee looked at the current version and sort of noticed that a lot of it was sort of procedural, and there may have been some inconsistencies between branches because we have several different types of meeting facilities. So we tried to strike a good balance between moving things that are kind of operational or day-to-day operations out of policy and into the purview of the staff, while also recognizing that this policy serves a sort of informative purpose for patrons of how do I use the library, or what do I need to know about using the library. So we tried to strike that balance in terms of the specific bullet points that were kind of exposed in here, but leaving to strictly procedural. But certainly if there's further questions, we can, between David and I and Martha, we can tackle those.
Comments? Ready to move this to a vote?
So we're voting on the draft.
Yes.
So we're replacing the black lettered current version with the red lettered post draft. So the entire thing. And this was one that just could use a whole rewrite.
That's
what it got.
in black and white.
Oh, I see.
The lighter of the two.
Motion to accept the version of policy 5.1.
I'll accept the new version of policy 5.1.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Brings us to 5.2, the library equipment fund, where we're.
Getting red
So this, again, we read, had a first reading last month, and as a reminder, the committee, based on discussion with the director, is recommending that we essentially strike or deprecate this, remove it from the policy manual. And it's there's some specifics here about how certain funds are used for equipment. We don't have, part of our rationale is that we didn't have parallel policies for how other, there's no specific policy that says that the state aid is specifically used for the materials. That's just our convention that's worked for us on a year-to-year basis. And we, as a board, we approve that structure every year. So it would be the same rationale here for, we don't need a specific policy dictating how the equipment fund is allocated. Additionally, it's covered there's some language in the regional agreement which underlies anything in the policy manual and also the budget. And David shared that during the first reading last month. That basically says the same thing. So it's already covered elsewhere anyways. So again, a vote for this proposal would be a vote to deprecate this section policy, what is it, 3.2, and essentially replace it with nothing. We're deprecating or removing it.
Motion to remove policy section 3.2.
Edward?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're cleaning things up. And the 5-year plan.
Yeah, I think that's you because we haven't had a
Yeah,
meeting.
we haven't met since the last group meeting, but just to let everybody know, we are still collecting survey data. It's a public engagement time basically during September and October. Staff are working on some draft language for the full committee to review. Only the subcommittee that's working on the community engagement is meeting currently. I did bring some bookmarks that JMRL is giving out. So take as many as you like, as you think you can use or pass along. Leave whatever you don't want on the table. The goal was in September to hit the library users for input. So went out in the library's newsletter, went out in the notifications that come with overdues and courtesy notices and things, signage in the libraries, things like that. And October, the goal is to bring in the outside world, so folks that aren't necessarily going to be in the library interacting with the library. So we're planning attending some community events, working with partners newsletters. We've already made some headway, and like if you get the Health District's newsletter last week, it had the JMRL survey. The City of Charlottesville put out a release about it. We're going to try to be in the Louisa County's got a communication that goes out to the people living in the state will be good there. The Chamber of Commerce here in Charlottesville put it out. So one of the big pushes is going to be at the upcoming Friends sale, putting out information there because we get readers that aren't necessarily library users, although there's a lot of mixing and matching there. We're going to be in we have a laundromat libraries program that the Friends of the Library runs. They're going to be putting out materials in October. That's in every jurisdiction. So Let me know if you're aware of upcoming community events or newsletters that serve your jurisdiction. You can just let me know, oh, hey, there's this thing that goes out to everybody who lives in this neighborhood or whatnot, and we'll reach out. We'll be happy to reach out and say, hey, do you want to include this? I'll link to this survey. So far we've had about 600 responses. The goal was 1,000, so a little over halfway, but I would love more than that even. Anyway, when we have that done, we will collate and present a summary to the board, even outside of the 5-year plan process. Just like here's what we heard. Basically, the bottom line is from looking at what we've gotten so far, people love the library. They've all got an individual thing that they want to see, like, oh, it wouldn't be great if we could do this or that. But for the most part, it's very positive. Expected that from the library users, and we'll present it when we have more information. The full body will probably get together later this fall to start trying to wordsmith some things. Take that feedback and plug it back into the plan itself.
Library active on social media and one of the survey, which I think is great.
And that, again, that closes at the end of October.
Yeah, on Halloween.
Wait, I'm sorry, this survey closes at the end of the month?
Yes.
And if I was going to share that link with someone, oh, I see a tiny URL here. That's the best one.
Yeah, or there's a link there, blog dot, what is it, at the bottom there, there's a sticky,
JMRL.org.
yeah, blog.jmrl.org, there's a sticky post there. The top post there for the rest of the month is going to be about this survey. So if you're looking for something easy to remember,
Oh, I see.
rather than the tiny URL.
Good idea.
Library director's report.
Okay. I kind of stepped on my own news there, but don't forget the book sale starts next week. So
October 7th, despite what you see on Facebook. Right?
yes, members night is Friday night, October 6th. So if you would like to attend members night, it's a very fun event. Just make sure your membership with the Friends is up to date and you can show up, and there's a limit. I forget I think it's $50, something like that. Yeah, some limit to how much you can purchase that night, but it's a fun event and very crowded. And then of course the book sale goes on. And this is at Albemarle Square in the home of the old Northside Library. It'll go on for the entire week, sandwiching those 2 weekends there. So, speaking of the Friends of the Library, it's a further reminder that the Virginia Library Association Award Ceremony for the Friends of the Library of the Year is going to be in Northern Virginia on Sunday, 10/22. So I'll be driving up with book sale manager Peter Mano that afternoon and returning that evening because there is a library board meeting the next day. So I won't be staying overnight, and if any of you all wanted to attend, so. If you're interested, though, JMRL can reimburse for travel, conference registration, and accommodations if anyone else wants to go. Let me know. October 5th is the last day to register to go to the conference and to go to the award ceremony. The hotel rates deadline is the 29th, so it's the end of this week. So if you really want to go and you want to stay, okay. Annually in the fall, all JMRL branches close for all staff training day, which was in-service day for 50 years, but the name got changed in the hopes of making it understandable to the public. All staff training day. So this year going to be on Monday, October 9th. So 2 weeks from today, basically. All branches will be closed. Trustees are always welcome to these events. We're planning a buffet lunch starting at 11:30. If you're like me and you like to plan your day around when it's time to eat. The location is at the Zemer Hall Conference Center at UVA. That's off of Alderman Road, and we'll be sending out some materials to all staff about how to get there and reminding them, they signed up for some breakout sessions, so we'll send an agenda, like a schedule of the day's events, and I'll send it to you all as well if you'd like to attend for a part or all.
Has the world's worst parking. Get there early.
Get there early. Yeah, it has spots for about 70 cars, so we're going to do a little carpooling at JMRL. Just to report that one of the initiatives that JMRL has undertaken has been cross-training. We just started year 2 of cross-training. So in year 1 for library staff, each library staff member at JMRL worked at a different branch or department doing circulation. So they either would travel branch to branch or sometimes internally if you work in children's, or maybe you were at circulation. Year 2 still requires all new staff to cross-train at circulation because that's still the most handy thing for staff to know how to do. So we needed to fill a gap somewhere. You could slide in there. But it's opened up for staff to learn about driving the delivery bus, working on the bookmobile, working with the Friends of the Library, technical services, collection development, young adult services, children's services, reference services. Our web manager is going to take some cross training folks in. The digital media lab, our business manager, and our volunteer coordinator. So we had a CE about this about a year or so ago from Susan Huffman, who's the head of that subcommittee who worked on it at the Nelson Library. It was very successful in year 1. Everybody got a chance to go everywhere. I worked in Nelson last year. But this year it's more open, and I'm looking forward to telling you about how that went once we got a year's worth of data there. I wanted to show some final summer reading stats, and the easiest way to do it was a social media post that Jennifer McAdam Miller put up. Summer reading by the number here. When I saw it all, in bright colors like that, it really made an impact on me. So almost 27,000 people attended, almost 800 programs this summer, over 4,000 new library card holders, almost 4,000 summer challenge participants, 5,500 books earned. That was the prize that went out for participating in the challenge. And then just some circ numbers, 360,000 items went out, 121,000 digital items. So very successful summer reading program. A lot of that spearheaded by Tim and the summer reading program committee. So certainly, Tim, we're going to be calling you next summer. How did you do this? But at any rate, just wanted to share that with the board.
So a question about that.
Yeah.
We looked at a slide a while ago about the difference between a physical and a digital. Are these numbers in the same ratio as overall, or are they more physical during the summer?
You mean, is this abnormal, and is this a summer only phenomenon, the amount of digital circulation?
A ratio to general search.
I think it's probably pretty close to the same. If you look at your reports, they're reported out monthly, and you can see for the whole year here, like if we look at the July statistics, you can see the last fiscal year's worth of circulation. So out of the 1,700 circulations, 400, so almost a quarter of them were digital circ. So that's pretty close to what that number was.
Yeah.
I just showed.
Okay.
And that number is climbing faster than any other branch or department's circulation work.
Actually, I think it was, wasn't it about a third?
For summer
reading?
For summer, for the last one we looked at, 360 to 121. So it was creeping then. Yeah.
Well, added them together would be 120 out of 4,800. So that's a lot closer to the 25.
Yeah. So my guess is that it's not, without having done any actual math, I'm just trying to count in my head. I think it's probably about on par with the rest of the year. The trends that we're seeing. And then the last thing I wanted to report was that after 2 years, Nelson's outreach van is finally here.
But it's stuck.
It's at the city yard awaiting tags and titles, but it has arrived in the JMRL service area. Also needs a little bit of work to get the Wi-Fi device that's on it turned on. So at any point in the next few weeks, it will arrive in Nelson County. And this has been a long ordeal.
This is the bookmobile?
This is their outreach vehicle. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, outreach.
Yeah.
Okay.
But at some point, I will have Susan bring it for you all to see, and you can kind of see the differences between this and a bookmobile. It's got carts inside that are designed to come off of it and to roll into the location rather than people coming in and browsing materials. But we're very excited. The Nelson staff is very excited, and they're going to be scheduling, taking it out basically 1 day a week. RFP is going to be going out hopefully this week for that 24-hour library and Nellie's Ford as well. The kind of the red box of books and materials there.
For the bookmobile, we have had it has started there.
Yes, we've completed the first month of the new Nelson and Louisa stops there. So we're learning some things. We're going to have to adjust a little bit. Like one of the stops was at the Louisa Health and Rehab Center, Santa Louisa, and we need more time for that because it didn't didn't account for the amount of people that would need to use the lift to get into the vehicle.
Uh-huh.
Because there are people there that are obviously, rehabbing from surgeries and things like that. So learning that on the fly. That's all I have to report to.
I think that's pretty magnificent.
Me too.
Next on the agenda is other matters. Quite sure what fits in that category, but
You forgot to.
something I forgot.
I have a question. I have two questions. On this, our board meeting list, which is really helpful. So can we add like the policy committee meetings, which months, those are every other month, is that right? So that all the committee meetings can, to the extent we know them, be included on this, like a master list, basically.
I'm fine with that. It's really only the policy committee that's scheduled in advance that you would know.
Okay.
The board just made a motion and voted on accepting that, so you would need to ask me to make that change and vote on it.
And I will say, we are because we have been historically pretty consistent about it. It's every other month, usually right before the board meeting, but not always. So you might report it as hey, this month is a policy committee month, rather than it's this specific day. I don't know. I guess these aren't specific days on there. Oh, they are specific days. So I don't know if there's a way to accommodate that, give a little bit of wiggle room. But that's just something to consider.
I think it's a little loose. Are you on the phone?
Yeah.
Two questions.
I mean, so when was the last, there was one
Last month. So if it wasn't today, then it's next month. That's it.
You just put it on yours.
November.
I always put it
18th.
on the meeting agenda. And I always email out an agenda and we always post on the website for the public to know at least a week in advance.
But Ann is right. It is kind of knowable in advance that, usually there's one this month.
It's just a fine chunk, but I have to leave work. So.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I saw in our emails this Virginia Commission for the Arts grant for overview for libraries, and I wondered if that was something we consider. And I thought it was just kind of cool because they will give grants to put art in libraries, like have an art like gallery or display.
Maybe we can
or-
do those
Get the
rotating
pictures
pictures.
I just thought it'd be a good way, something to consider. A grant from this commission.
Okay, do you have the email to send to
I
me?
have the,
Yeah, send me what you have and I'll take a look.
and then that would bring, a whole different group of people into the library, perhaps.
Yeah, we
or
have,
into different branches.
many of our branches have art display areas, like here in the hallway.
Yeah.
Generally, we try to get local art up on it, but Northside always has some art up on the wall. Central, right now there's nothing up on the wall there, but usually there's somebody there for a month or two, and they schedule it out in advance. So they're gonna get, but in the meeting room, Nelson frequently has school art. They work with the local,
Right,
the local high school.
but this is, perhaps we get it.
Sure. Yeah, why don't you send me specifically what you're talking about there and I'll take a look. Can I back up to your first question there? Does the board want action on that? Because you took a vote saying, here's the new
Right.
budget meeting and schedule.
I mean, it's up to you, Mike, if you don't think it would be,
I think, when you
Safe
do that,
to do that.
it's policy.
I'll figure it out. So no, you're not gonna take.
No
it.
changes.
Put it supplemental, like it's a second page, because it's not a full board, it's a committee.
That's not the personnel committee. Is
Yeah, that's more about the budget schedule
Yeah.
for the year.
Yeah.
So the personnel committee is meeting next Monday, and that's one of the meetings that has to happen before the budget committee needs to adopt to recommend a budget. So it has to happen at that time of the year. Doesn't have a date though.
I'm in denial that it took. I know we have a meeting next week. I will be there, but I'm still in the.
That one's at Central. We just,
Great.
Kathy determined that.
2:00.
Okay, but I'm hearing no action there, but Anne, I'll make sure you're aware, like next month.
Yeah,
I'll make sure you get.
Agenda items for our October meeting, I'm sure we'll be discussing the budget. There will be a policy committee meeting before that.
There'll be a personnel committee report as well, we're meeting next week.
Maybe a central library.
We have an update on.
I won't be closed yet, I'll say probably. I don't have one planned. We could find something, or if the board has anything in particular they'd like to hear about.
Anybody has anything they'd like to hear about? Library services, functions, programs.
Very nice. Thank you, Martha, for reaching out and saying, hey, I'd like to know more about this. It's nice to have some direction there.
We're not sure the van's ready for show and
Right,
tell.
We certainly could do that.
Yeah.
How do we make that publicly broadcast? I guess I'd carry the laptop and walk it through.
If the little side project that you and I have discussed comes through, the
Okay.
visualization, that could be something to
Yeah.
show and tell.
Yeah, Mike's working on a data project.
This project will, I don't want to commit, I didn't want to say as much. It may or may not.
Well, let me,
Sure.
Tony, by the time it's time for you to send an agenda out, we'll know whether or not. there's something there.
Top secret.
And then see or no see.
What's on the agenda? Just to make a motion for adjournment.
That we adjourn.
All those in favor?
Alright.
Opposed? Good.
Today.
Ah.
Ah, the second time you got to use that gavel today.